Recall, Fuse, Ascend, Ultra Hand. Long ago, the Hyrulean races lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the demon tribe attacked. Only the courageous one, master of all three timelines, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished into the Shrine of Resurrection. Anyway, 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new hero, a wind bomber named Link. And although his combat skills are sucky and hilarious, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Link can save the world. Or at least this little guy. Hello to you all and welcome back to GameSmiths, and it's been a massive week for fans of The Legend of Zelda, with the drought finally broken and series producer IG Newman confirming that development for Tears of the Kingdom is finally complete. That's sweet music to our ears, and not only that, we were treated to a solid 11 minutes of gameplay. I think it's fair to say the reveal did not disappoint. The demonstration itself was another masterful iteration of the build-up to the most highly anticipated game in recent memory, with Aonuma revealing a collection of new abilities for Link, effectively upping the ante on what's become renowned as the multiplicative gameplay that catapulted Breath of the Wild to legendary status through a unique blend of the physics and chemistry engine, as well as coupled with aspects of combat and masterful world building that really make this a unique title and return this beloved franchise back on the cusp of generational defining excellence. Over the course of the gameplay reveal, Aonuma draws the attention towards these new abilities that build upon the skills from Breath of the Wild, those being the powers of Recall, Fuse, Ascend, and of course the Swiss Army trickery of the aptly named Ultra Hand. Over the past 6 years, we've witnessed players worldwide find new and amazing techniques to solve problems in-game, as well as find new glitch and speedrunning techniques and solutions that honestly boggle the mind. So it's fair to say the toolset on offer with this trailer puts any concerns people had of a boring repeat of Breath of the Wild to bed. And the depths of customization and opportunities players will have come May the 12th, when Tears of the Kingdom finally arrives, is really looking exciting. And I think it's what I've long suspected will be a deity level of craftsmanship and creativity that has come to define the Zelda series all the way back since its debut in 1986. I'm sure you've seen a literal wave of reaction and analysis videos since the reveal, and once again I'm very late to the party. So this breakdown comes fresh from my own take of the footage, and I'll avoid the boring frame by frame because you've probably had that to death, and what I'll try to offer you is just a bit of my own focus and insights of what I picked up when I watched the trailer, mainly the first time to be honest. Let's start off with the skeleton in the closet, I'd like to call it, and this was an observation that might be a little controversial, I'm not sure, but the interpretation of the visual for me is something that really stood out. Where I'm going with this is amongst the glorious display of Link's new powers, it sort of builds to a climax of sorts with the demonstration of this peak wonderment level of customization through the Ultra Hand ability. It's here we get to see Link use a new power that's never before seen to combine aspects of the physical world to create a raft capable of movement, not too dissimilar from the machinations we saw ever so briefly in the February Direct that raised eyebrows as fans like you and I tried to wrap our minds around these machines carving their way across Hyrule on land and in the air. And it suggests that Zonai technology empowered movement were about to blow the Master Cycle clean out of the water. As with the other powers demonstrated up until this point, an icon appears on the HUD menu in the top left to reflect the activation of the particular ability with the L button, and the symbol we have here is one that we've seen recently introduced on the front of the Deluxe Edition art booklet, but also appears on the Japanese website introductory animation. Where this version differs slightly though is it's not got the green colouring to it as we've seen in the past. This one is clearly coloured in red, and it features a distinctive triangle shape centred in the middle portion of the skeletal hand, and a huge shout out to my wife for confirming that when we were looking at it together. Stating the obvious, the bony appendage is not the type of image you'd typically associate with the heroic type characterization of Link, and presented here in red, and what I can only suggest bears a striking resemblance to the Triforce of Power. You might be able to see where I'm going with this one. Now, I've said for a long time that I considered a fusion of Link with the Hand of Ganon as something that could form part of this game and the storyline in particular. And whilst this particular visualization in connection with the Ultra Hand is leagues away from confirming that suspicion, the orientation of the hand confirms it aligns with the back portion of the hand. What I mean here is assuming it represents Link's right arm, and the appendage affected by the malice in the previous trailers is indeed a right arm. And now we have the center of these strange new abilities reflecting that particular hand. The direction of the thumb indeed aligns to the right hand, meaning the triangle shape is not a visualization of the palm area, but the back of the hand, the iconic location of the Triforce we've seen time and time again throughout this series. Further reinforcing this suspicion, for me anyway, is the behaviour of the constructs we've seen in trailers to date. And specifically during this gameplay reveal, you see the constructs appear to represent creations maybe of Zonai origin or potentially a branch or alternate iteration of the mysterious Sheikah, but either way they're the polar opposite of the monsters synonymous with the demon tribe. The sentry or soldier versions appear to be scouting areas of both the Sky Islands and Hyrule, seemingly protecting locations and resources, powered by the same green type energy we see used throughout the game. For me, it was very much a callback to similar forms we've seen in Twilight Princess, under the guidance of the Dominion Rod. I think it's fair to say they don't appear to be the typical enemy type, and there's been association with those to Guardians that we've maybe seen in Skyward Sword before, but it begs the question as to why they would act aggressively towards Link. Now, whilst it could be the case that they act in a similar fashion to the Guardians in the way that the Sheikah shrines are represented in Breath of the Wild, serving as a trial for the hero of sorts, it could also be argued that they are responding to what they perceive to be an immediate threat, born directly from the malice-ridden arm that now infects Link following the events of the storyline represented in the earlier trailers, where Link comes face to face with Ganon under the caves under Hyrule. Now, I don't know. What do you think of the Ultra Hand skeletal icon? Do you think it could represent something nefarious perhaps? Or is it from Link's corruption of the malice, or is it something else entirely? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know in the comments. Called this section creating a sequel because so often the concept art surrounding the development of Breath of the Wild has proven to have applications in Tears of the Kingdom, and the gameplay trailer provided another great example of ones we've seen in the past, like that of the hand and of course the floating sky islands we've seen at the GDC. But this one was a little bit left field. It was the puff shroom that actually stood out for me. In the fusion section of the gameplay, here Link was able to baffle the construct soldier when fused with the shield as part of a defensive combat option. Now, whilst the puff shroom itself is not directly referenced in creating a champion, there's a section dedicated to a selection of fungi considered in the conceptual stages of development. Some of which actually do feature in Breath of the Wild, but there's others that are previously unseen and they're quite interesting. In one of my more recent videos, I pointed this section out because one that highlighted for me was the light mushroom. It's a concept that appears to have realistic applications, especially when we consider that dark world aspect that's almost palpable in the February Direct trailer. An example of the application of that light shroom could be where we see those Zonai-esque towers across Hyrule that replace the towers from Breath of the Wild. We see a light source coming from the base of the towers pointing directly up, and I immediately thought of that light mushroom as maybe potentially the source of that light. Now, whilst the light mushroom itself does not appear when Link scours his inventory for fuse options in the gameplay reveal, we do see a selection of never before seen items, and the inclusion of the puff shroom suggests that other fungi could be realistic fusible options for Tears of the Kingdom. When we're looking at the concept art, there's a real cool few notable examples that could be included. Not just the light mushroom of course, but there's one called the volcano mushroom, a grip mushroom. I mean, imagine being able to actually climb something without slipping down in the rain. We've also got one that sounds really cool. It's a looking mushroom. And then there's one that I find particularly interesting, and that's the swimming mushroom. You see, fans have speculated as to whether underwater exploration of some description could feature in the expanded Hyrule of Tears of the Kingdom. And this little piece of concept art has long provided me hope that the concept itself was quietly being worked on in development and held back as part of the final reveal come launch. Adding to the hopes of aquatic fare in the game is the animation we see Link perform when he uses the Ascend ability. You'd have to say the technique here is almost like Link is swimming through another worldly dimension of sorts to access higher ground. It's mimicking the actions and spawning fluid type inflections of green energy that arguably look more like swimming than flight of any description. So again, we'll need to wait to find out, but I'm extremely confident we'll see one of these fungi make their way into the game for Tears of the Kingdom, maybe as a fuse option, but also potentially as a cooking option as well. So this observation is less specific to one element of the gameplay demonstration and is more kind of a collective and a commentary on the whole trailer and development lifecycle we've seen for Tears of the Kingdom, as well as highlights from the team at Nintendo going all the way back to the GDC presentation back in 2017. You see, it's clear to me that Nintendo are taking what Hidemaru Fujibayashi described as breaking conventions and multiplicative gameplay and upping the ante to more of a masterful level of design and application. What they've managed to do is take what is a very simple concept, but deliver it with absolute artistry. Whilst it might be something to talk about, they've managed to actualize the philosophy. They've given players the tools reflective of real-world physics and chemistry in a way that they can combine and create tools of their own and solutions to problems or obstacles. And these things range from combat to traversal to all sorts of glitches, techniques, and anything you could imagine. Speaking directly on those concepts for Breath of the Wild, the powers there being of course magnesis, stasis, bombs, and cryonis, these things helped form the basic building blocks of some of the most outlandish, crazy solutions to challenges no one could have even possibly imagined that I've seen over the course of the last 6 years, as players just seem to revel in this sandbox that Nintendo created. And now if we consider the next evolution of these tools, which act almost to exponential levels of possibilities in comparison, it's a plug and play philosophy of application that you'd be hard pressed to argue against when Inuma suggests that, at the end of this demonstration anyway, that the limitations of the adventure truly lie with your imagination. My point here, in watching these combinations and constructions, it was like watching a marriage between Breath of the Wild and Minecraft. And indeed, seeing the little battery icon on the minimap and the Zonai charge, well, that was just the final piece of the puzzle, because to me that was redstone. And I believe it will act in a way for players to be able to engage those mechanics and potentially create some sort of larger constructs or automations of their own. It's really exciting. And for me, that was probably the real standout of the trailer, the thing that got me the most excited. You see, I've had a dream of Atari Town 2.0, an extension of that quest if you will, but I might have been underselling it. There are definitely parts in this trailer, and I refer specifically to the earlier part riding the horse and also towards the end of the trailer, where the structures and the building materials look to be almost like they could be for building houses or maybe potentially shops or things like that. One of these in particular seems to be located where we know a Sheikah shrine exists in Breath of the Wild, and whilst on placement in this version of Hyrule is almost impossible to narrow down based on conflicting aspects of this world wonderfully sewn together by Nintendo, I think it's more than reasonable to consider the customization and building philosophy has graduated from its beta to a full-blown application in Tears of the Kingdom. And the potential for vehicles is really exciting. So are the tools and different defensive and offensive combat options. They're all great, but man, if we get to build houses or shops or larger constructions, maybe automations, maybe some sort of farming aspects, that's dream level stuff. I don't care what anybody says. And seeing the Zonai charge acting as a power source is consideration for me anyway that really got me thinking, and looking at that battery icon, it took me to the big machine type thing we saw Link riding around on in the February Direct trailer. What else can we make? What are these large power sources? It's really exciting, and it just really had that Minecraft vibe for me. So I don't know about you guys, but adding more Minecrafty type stuff to Zelda just seemed like a dream come true. The stable present in Dueling Peaks threw me for a massive loop, because I actually swore that the stables actually came about as a result of the Calamity, and after Zelda had sealed Calamity Ganon while waiting for Link to return prior to Breath of the Wild, that's where those stables came about as part of a rebuild. And I went back to creating a champion and checked it out, and the wording is very specific. It says that in the period after the Great Calamity, that the region's stable owners form a network of stables that double as inns. So this opening scene of Link riding the horse takes place around that area between Dueling Peaks and near Fort Hateno, but certainly the lack of Guardian relics and other unusual events and structures suggests that this should be part of the ancient timeline perhaps, but that's the thing, is it? Or is it the future? Or is it something else together? And what was really coy was Ionuma's cryptic unfamiliar Hyrule quote unquote comment there, which I really took to heart. Is this even the same Hyrule? I don't know, it's just really exciting. But putting that to one side though, I did notice the smoke signals that seem to be coming from this stable area are actually coming out of the nose of the horse that structures the top of the roof, and it made me wonder why that would be. Now, if these are not housing beds or inns like we see in Breath of the Wild, could these stables house something completely different, potentially machinery? Or is there something else that leans into the building aspects or those materials we see that are around that particular area? It's hard to tell, and certainly speculation aside, but it was a way that I was able to then make a distinguishment between the stables we know from Breath of the Wild and the ones we're seeing here in the Tears of the Kingdom gameplay. And I just thought it was interesting and worth sharing. The next one for me is about the Sky Island that Link floats down to after you see him use the recall ability at the start of the gameplay trailer. He lands on what seems to be like a large fan structure, much bigger than the versions of the rotors being used to power the raft we see later on, but this island is what stood out to me. It actually looked like it was similar to the ones we've seen Link flipping in the February trailer. And I don't know if you can follow me here, and I can't quite put my finger on how this would work, but I just got this feeling that that island's meant to flip, and the intention of that island is kind of like it's a key. It's meant to be turned upside down, and then those fans are powered and it moves to another location, maybe to help you get to another island. But I'm not sure how accurate I'd be with that one, but we do know that there is the coordinates now on the mini-map and a different version of that with Link's powers. But it also made me wonder about how the NASCAR type hieroglyphs on the surface could act to help you line those areas up as well if you're looking down. It's really starting to form more of a picture for me as to how the Sky Islands could be much more purposeful than they appear, or what we yet fully understand. Finally, I can't help but comment on what we don't see. That's always the killer for me. There's no sign of Zelda yet. There's no sign of the Gerudo area or Zora areas. Only glimpses of the map to its extent. And then the comment from Ionuma, which was again very coy but very particular, that some of Link's new abilities have been upgraded. Now the wording there is very deliberate, almost confirming that one or potentially more of the abilities from Breath of the Wild will make a return, adding to the multiplicative options, which I think makes a whole heap of sense when you consider we'd only be looking to add more onto the opportunities players have, and potentially even in the hands of Zelda should she be wielding the Sheikah Slate herself. Look, I could go on and on, there's so much I picked in that trailer, but I'm almost certain it's been dissected meticulously now by the community. I'm definitely late to the party, but thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video and the insights shared there, and hopefully there's something a little bit different. Tears of the Kingdom is so close, guys, you can almost taste the monster cake, and it really doesn't get any better than this when it comes to being a Zelda fan. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. When I looked at the fuse option, I wondered if anyone's going to combine a Hinox toenail with an arrow to make a stink shot. I'll leave you with that one. As always, thanks for being amazing. It's great to have you here. I'll see you next time here on GameSmiths.